When police found Roberto Calvi's lifeless body beneath Blackfriars Bridge in London, his pockets were weighted down with bricks and $15,000 in cash. The press called it a suicide. The syndicate called it a warning. And the Vatican, well, the Vatican called it unfortunate. This is the financial historian where money, power, and history collide. The death of Roberto Calvi in 1982 wasn't just the end of a banker. It was the unmasking of one of the most secretive financial empires in the modern world, built on faith, power, and billions of untraceable dollars flowing through the Vatican itself. To understand how a Catholic banker ended up silent beneath a bridge, you have to understand how the Vatican, a city of priests in Marbleby, became a financial superpower. It all started in 1929, when Pope Pius XI signed the Lateran Treaty with Benito Mussolini. The deal made Vatican City a sovereign state, gave the church political independence, and compensated it with 1.75 billion lira. To manage this new fortune, the church created the Institute for Religious Works, better known as the Vatican Bank. Its official mission was spiritual. Its practical advantage was earthly. As a sovereign entity, it operated outside Italian law. No taxes, no audits, no transparency. It was the perfect offshore bank, right in the heart of Rome. By the 1960s, the Vatican Bank was a master of financial secrecy, and as the Cold War intensified, that secrecy became a valuable tool. Enter Banco Ambrosiano and its chairman, Roberto Calvi, a devout Catholic and a brilliant financier. Calvi saw opportunity where others saw boundaries. In the 1970s, Calvi began building a network of offshore shell companies in Panama, Luxembourg, and South America. On paper, they were independent. In reality, they were controlled by Ambrosiano and backed by the Vatican Bank itself. Here is how it worked. Calvi would arrange massive loans from his bank to these offshore fronts. The Vatican Bank would then sign letters of guarantee, promising to cover the debt if the borrowers defaulted. But the borrowers didn't exist. The money would disappear into offshore accounts, reappear through intermediaries, and eventually fund political causes, covert operations, and organized crime. During the Cold War, the Vatican and Western intelligence shared one goal: stop communism. This meant funding resistance movements, like Solidarity in Poland. Money from Banco Ambrosiano and the Vatican Bank reportedly flowed to them, helping reshape Eastern Europe. But not all of it went to noble causes. Some of it ended up with Latin American regimes and the Sicilian underworld. At the center of this web was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus, the American head of the Vatican Bank. He and Calvi became partners in a parallel global banking system, using religious cover to move money that couldn't be traced. For a while, it worked brilliantly. Calvi was celebrated as God's banker. But the illusion began to crack. Italian regulators discovered that Ambrosiano had moved enormous sums abroad illegally. Calvi was arrested and convicted, but mysteriously released and reinstated as chairman. Meanwhile, it became clear that Ambrosiano's foreign loans exceeded its actual capital. Over $1.3 billion was unaccounted for. When investigators closed in, Calvi begged the Vatican for help, warning the Pope himself that a collapse would expose the Church's secret operations. His plea went unanswered. On June 17, 1982, Calvi fled Italy. 10 days later, he was gone. Found under Blackfriars Bridge. The name Blackfriars was a nickname for members of Propaganda II, or P2, a secret lodge of businessmen, spies, and politicians that Calvi belonged to. It was a parallel government, and now its banker was dead. Within weeks, Banco Ambrosiano collapsed. The Vatican denied everything, but investigators found letters signed by Marcinkus guaranteeing hundreds of millions in loans. When prosecutors tried to indict him, the Vatican invoked its sovereignty. For 7 years, Marcinkus lived behind Vatican walls, immune to the law. After years of legal battles, the Vatican paid $250 million to Ambrosiano's creditors as a goodwill settlement, not an admission of guilt. Marcinkus retired to Arizona and was never charged in Roberto Calvi. Decades later, forensics proved his death was not a suicide. He had been silenced. What makes this scandal so extraordinary wasn't just the corruption, but the scale of the Vatican, the Italian state, intelligence agencies, they all had a reason to bury it. The affair foreshadowed the architecture of modern global finance, offshore accounts, shell companies, and the quiet fusion of state, corporate, and even religious power. Today, Pope Francis has pledged reform, but the Vatican Bank remains a black box, answering only to the Pope. The system that Roberto Calvi helped build never stopped moving. It just evolved because faith, in its purest form, asks for belief without proof. And finance, when stripped of its numbers, often asks for the very same thing. If this gave you a new perspective, hit that subscribe button. History has the answers, and I'll show you where to look. Thanks for watching.